Kids, good evening. Tonight is my Paranormal Life Volume 2. I left off in Volume 1 just with my first experiences at about the age of 9, I believe. And now I'm going to do this in a chronological order to the best of my ability. And there's going to be a couple volumes that aren't going to be as exciting as, let's say, when things started ramping up near the 2000s. Um, so, but they're still important because they're all the growth. So here we go. So after I was given this intuition, I had no idea what to do with it. I had no idea. I was told don't talk about it, um, and I was kind of fascinated with it, but kind of confused with it. And eventually, I found out what intuition was. So then I wanted to test it. I wanted to see if it was really true. And lo and behold, I did have a fair amount of intuition. I wasn't well practiced at it. I hadn't really studied up on it or anything, and I still, to this day, really don't. I just learn. I experience first, and I ask questions later. And that's always how I've learned. I don't want to overstudy or anything like that and then get some kind of idea in my head. I'd rather just experience it first and ask questions later. Kind of like when I do investigations or when I worked with private clients. I wanted them to tell me as little as possible so that I could just experience it. It made it more relevant for me, and it made it more exciting for them, frankly. So at the age of 9 and going up through my early teens, I tried different experiments with myself. At one point, I was rather fascinated with myself and thought I was some kind of superhero, Superman, whatever kind of thing. I had some kind of magical power. Soon to discover that the harder I tried, the less result I got, which I also didn't understand. If I sat there and tried to be intuitive, I'd go blank, frankly. And still to this day, that's the case. Now, I mention this because this is important. I have seen scam artists in the psychic community who will sit there and they'll go, and they get this look on this face like they're having trouble taking a shit. If you see them working that hard, they're completely fake. They're blowing smoke up your ass. Honest to goodness, I swear. Because being intuitive or being in touch takes no effort whatsoever. It just comes in. It just flows in and flows out without any effort on your part. Actually, the less effort you put in, the more you usually get out. So if somebody's sitting there going, you're being had. That's my personal experience. I would welcome debate of anybody trying to show me different. But so far, from the people I've talked to around the world that have these same kind of experiences I do, it's not an effort. It just happens. Now, the hardest thing about these things just happening is that when they do, then you have to actually trust it. Now, that is a process that takes years. And when I was young, I didn't trust it because I didn't know to trust it. And I was also a very willful child, and difficult. So I would often hear my intuition voice in my head tell me something, and then my ego would want to do something else, and they'd have like a little discussion, and if I was smart, I'd listen to my intuition, but most of the time I'm rather dense and thick and Aries, and so I have to bang my head against the wall a couple thousand times before I get the point. I'm not the sharpest pencil in the box by any stretch of the imagination. So indeed, I would go against my intuition. I would get burned badly. And as I said, I would feel like this physical slap across my face at the end, and then this burning in here. I've always felt it was my great grandmother saying, "Idiot, what are you doing?" And then I would recall the um, the maid telling me, um, "Don't let this run you. You run it." So, but it didn't make sense to me that by not letting it run me didn't mean just overriding it willy nilly. Actually, that was exactly the opposite. But like I said, I'm not a smart guy at all. So I spent a lot of my childhood years just forming, and I had other issues going on besides that. I mean, I'm not just this, again, one trick pony. I had lots of things going on. I had the adopted child thing. Then I had, this is the 80s. Then I had to come out. Oh, that was traumatizing for the whole family, friends, and everybody else. And that landed me in a hospital, a mental hospital, actually, because they wanted to fix me. Which didn't fix me. It just made me militant, bitter, angry, well adjusted, but pissed off. So I was kind of like the gorilla fag, so to speak. I had no tolerance for anybody that didn't have tolerance for me. And I would not introduce myself, "Hi, my name is Michael." I would say, "Hi, I'm gay and my name is Michael. You got a fucking problem with that?" That's how I introduced myself to people for a long time. And I had a very bad family life and very um, hateful parents for the most part, and they were very cruel to me. So I didn't form normal family type bonding feelings. Again, being adopted, the one thing that a reader told me many years ago in Miami when I first moved to Miami back in, I think it was 1989, 1990, was um, he read my shells and he said, "You're adopted," which he didn't know. And he said, "You're lucky. You get to choose who you love." And at first I thought, how horrible. What a horrible thing to say. But then I realized it was true. And I was really blessed because the only people in my family that I ever really attached to were my grandmothers. I didn't attach to my father. I didn't attach to my mother. I didn't attach to my little brother. I wasn't particularly close with my grandfathers. Um, I, I kind of liked one of my cousins, um, but the other cousins, they were all very distant, and I didn't have much time or experience with them. So, it was just forced politeness. And same with my aunts and uncles. It was really, we were never close. So, what what point do you have with that? And it was nice because as I was growing up, and if you know anything about adopted child syndrome, it is a condition where you have this unnatural need to please people. And you do it unconsciously, and you will give up gold, treasure, your soul, everything just to please people and want to feel accepted. Now, the nice thing about being intuitive is that you can tune into people and then you can anticipate their needs before they even have them. And I still am very good at watching and listening carefully to people, and then getting to know the inflections in their voices, their thought patterns, their speech patterns, blah, blah, blah. It's like I get a doctorate degree in individuals. And then it's much easier for me to tune in and anticipate what they might want or need and deliver it right at the moment they think about it, or about 1 second before they think about it. And that's always my goal, to do it 1 second before they think about it. Now, I've really been working on my adopted child syndrome lately, but at that point or that juncture in my life, that was my life. And being intuitive was a godsend for me because I could anticipate people's needs. And when I got thrown out of the house at 17, or 18, sorry, the day of high school graduation, that ability helped me survive because I would literally toss that on the street with nothing. And being intuitive helped me survive and get through that period. So it really did help me, but I wasn't talking to a lot of ghosts or anything like that. I was just using it for interpersonal communication, frankly. And that was the only thing that I was even thinking of. I was in survival mode. And I stayed in survival mode for quite a while. Now, as I got into my early 20s, um, my intuition always, I seemed to override my better judgment when it came to relationships. That was what my Achilles heel. That's where my ego always took over from my intuition, mostly. And I got into some disastrous relationships and got used and abused like you would not believe, because I overrode it. And those where I get the smack. Sometimes it took 6 months, sometimes it took a year, sometimes it took 5 years of living in pure hell before I finally woke up and said, you know what, this is stupid. I got to move on. This is not working for me. So I bounced from relationship to relationship. Intuition did not help any of that. And the fact that I became this workaholic, um, basically from a very young age, from 10, because my parents thought I was really stupid. So they think the only thing they thought they could do was teach me a work ethic. So I had to start working at the age of 10, even though I grew up in a pretty well-to-do family. But they were trying to help me in the later years. And I appreciate that they did that. I also kind of appreciate the fact that they threw me out of the house because it made me a lot stronger and it made me have to be independent. And it made me stop obsessing over everyone else and put me kind of in a survival mode where I used my intuition for survival, not just to please people for the sake of pleasing people. So it kind of was, like God makes no mistakes, as they say. Um, and I'm not going to get into my personal spiritual beliefs because, frankly, it's very complicated and I'm not religious. I'm very spiritual, but I'm not religious at all. So I'll throw that out there too. Um, so as I got into my mid-20s and I was settled into the job that I really loved, and I was working all the time and I was doing things, my mind was completely occupied with work. So where my intuition came in at that juncture in my life was that I got so good at my job that I could literally wake up in the morning, sit in front, of the TV or a computer when I finally got a computer and all that kind of stuff. And I could tell you how my day was going to go before I even started. And everything that I predicted in my day would happen. So I became kind of this guru at my airline job because I seemed to know before everybody else what plane was going to break down, how much disruption, lost bags, whatever it was I was doing. I pretty much had it down. I could anticipate it really well. That served me extremely well in that career, extremely well, for 17 and a half years. And at some points, I got so good at it that it actually became a little boring, because I literally could predict literally everything that was going to happen that day, or, for a week at some points in advance. So that was a challenge. Now, during that time, one of the jobs I ended up doing was doing hotel contracts, meaning that besides, customer service and all the things that go on at airports, I was redoing a program and I ended up saving, my company millions of dollars and, getting an award for Employee of the Year. But what I had to do was reach out to the hospitality industry or the hotel industry, and I had to reintroduce airlines and our business to them, because we have very valuable business, not just with contract crew rooms, but also with off-scheduled operations, where planes would break down and we'd buy passengers hotel rooms where there was bad weather, and we would hand out discount coupons, and it was worth tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to these hotels, because not only did they get room revenue, but they also got food and beverage revenue. And so I reinvented the program that my company was using at the location I was working at. And so I had to learn, I didn't know anything about the hotel business, so I had to learn the hard way. And having that intuition and knowing that somebody was telling me crap, I could say, crap, 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 crap. It was easier to navigate the minefields and not get distracted by people that didn't have my best interest in my company and my passengers' best interest at heart. And that was a godsend also. And I like to always give this particular example because it really entertained me. I went to this hotel in Miami, and this sales lady decided to show me her hotel, which I wasn't particularly fond of. I didn't get a good vibe when I walked in. That was the other thing that intuition was good for, was you could pick up the vibe of a place, and you could tell even subconsciously how it would affect the customer. And I wasn't getting a particularly positive vibe, but this lady, when I saw her, my intuition was like, she's going to screw with you, and she's going to tell you stupid things. So I walked around, she showed me her property, we went to a room that she had pre-selected and pre-set up for my inspection. Now, I don't know if you ever watched Hotel Impossible, but I'm as bad or worse than that guy, that little dude, that Anthony Mulcahy or whatever his name is. When I do an inspection, I do an inspection. And I do them often. And I kept all of the hotels that were in my program on their toes, because I would show up with no advance notice and say, show me a room. And I'd tear it apart. So this lady, and I was just getting started at this point. So I wasn't Anthony Mulcahy yet. And, and I was still learning how hotels did things, and I would ask all kinds of just strange random questions that came to my mind, because I was kind of filling in this jigsaw puzzle. So this lady said something to the effect of, oh, well, we have 200 thread count sheets, which meant absolutely nothing to me. I had no idea I didn't even know that they counted by the thread. I mean, literally, I had no clue. Whenever I bought sheets for the bed, I just looked at what looked nice in the size of bed I had, and I bought the sheets. I didn't think about thread count or any of that stuff. I mean, that was, not in my wheelhouse. And, basically still isn't. I've learned more about sheets since then, but at that point, it was just outer space. So I said, okay, well, is that good or bad? She said, well, the higher the thread count, the better the sheet. Okay. So I said, do you buy your sheets by the thread, or do you buy them by the set, or how do you buy them? And she didn't want to answer that question. So I said, well, let me ask you another question. I said, and I was trapping her because my intuition was saying, you're getting stupid information. So I said, well, have you ever counted the threads on a sheet? How do you know there's 200? I said, what if you're only getting 197 and they're ripping you off 3 threads? You could be losing a lot of money and a lot of quality by only getting 194 thread count as opposed to 200 thread count. Have you ever independently checked that? So she looked at me, she's like, no. I said, well, then that information you're giving me is relatively ridiculous, because if you're not checking it and you're not verifying it, how do you know? So she said, she kind of be quiet. So I was looking around the room and looking around the room, and something said, bed, check the 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 bed right there. So this is where intuition comes in. Um, Now I'm in my mid-20s, and intuition came in important ways. It said, check the bed, check the bed, check it there. So I pulled back the bedspread, and sure enough, the bed was beautifully laid back, like they had done the turn down service. And I looked, and I, looked at the blanket, and I looked at the sheet, and lo and behold, there was a little hole in this 200 thread count fabulous sheet. So, um, being the delightful, charming person that I am, I decided to stick my finger in the hole and make it bigger, and then lift all the whole bedding up with one finger and said, "So," I said, "are these holes like free, or do you charge extra for this for easy maneuvering? Because you can get the whole bed naked in no time, or is that just for the maids?" And the lady just turned pale and flush. I said, "I guess, well, that ends the discussion on thread count." I said, "Time to go." I said, and she said, "Well, do you want to stay for coffee?" I'm like, "No, no, thanks. I got to go. I have another appointment." So I left to the other appointment. I went to another hotel. And the first thing I asked when I walked in the door was, "Can I ask you a strange question? How do you buy your sheets?" And the salesman said, "Like every other hotel, you go to this book," and he showed me the book, "and you buy them by the pound." I said, "So you don't buy them by the thread count?" He said, "Who the hell told you that?" So I said, "Never mind." I said, "Thank you for showing me the book. Now I understand. So next time we talk about thread count, I'll know that I'm just getting smoke blown up." Because anybody at any hotel that tells you they buy sheets by the thread are ridiculous. Nobody does that. They go to the book and they buy them by the pound. So I'm like, okay, great. So in that respect, it's not very paranormal, but in that respect, intuition was helping me a lot at this juncture in my um, existence. Now, I was also having relationships and being able to tune into my partner and anticipate their needs and all that kind of stuff really helped. It also helped me have a lot of patience when I didn't really need to or I shouldn't. And it also was a red flag warning when I was getting screwed over or cheated on or whatever. So intuition was helping me there. Now, I still wasn't fully grasping it, and I really didn't think about it. I no longer thought of it as a magical power or a superpower because I learned as a kid if I tried really hard, nothing happened. So I learned that lesson already. Now I just let the information flow as it did, and I was learning the hard way to listen to the intuition as opposed to just bulldozing my way through with my own ego. Um, but at this point, also in my life, I still had fears. And the one thing about having fears that I learned over, and this changed in my, I have to say 40s, early 40s, was that anytime I had a fear, it always came true. Whatever my fear was, it would come true. If it was ending a relationship, cheating, somebody cheating on me, I had a fear of getting sick, I had a fear of being helpless, abandonment, all these kind of fears. Every one of those things came true. And later, I'll probably in the next volume, I'll share with you that huge transition that happened when I stopped being afraid. But in the meantime, during hotel contracts, I had to go to Puerto Rico and do some work. And I met a future relationship that was probably one of my worst and only lasted a year. And we went, we traveled back and forth to Puerto Rico a couple of times during our relationship because um, my partner's family was still there. And we went one day to the San Juan Castle, whatever that, fort, the fort of San Juan. And if anybody's been to the fort, or at least in the time period I went to the fort, In front of the fort at San Juan, in Old San Juan, there's this large, flat grass field. It's really large. And then you have the fort against the ocean, and then behind that you have Old San Juan and shops and all that kind of stuff. And then this big grass field in between. So if you're on the grass field, there is nowhere to hide. There's no bump, there's no rock, there's no nothing to hide behind. It's impossible. It's just this wide open space. So we were there, and I was perceiving and seeing things from the past, but I really wasn't like obsessed about it. I was just kind of thought it's like extra information. It's kind of like going on a tour with, like one of those clicky things and maybe earphones. Um, so you got to see and hear a little bit more than the other person did. So, but that had been my whole life, so I didn't really think anything of it. Now, as we left and we're going to go walk across the field and go back into Old San Juan, I saw a gentleman as soon as we were leaving the fort, and I could see him and feel him all the way at the far end of the grass field. And he was dressed in his typical 1950s Caribbean smooth Mac Daddy kind of guy, with that kind of that um, suit. I forget what the fabric's called. Linen suit, the whole smooth, suave Latin poppy thing. And he was an older man, probably in his 50s, and this was the first time that I intentionally saw a ghost and knew it was a ghost before I got to it. And it was a big learning moment for me. So this is a huge moment. I saw it. I registered this is a ghost. Then I saw it, and I had the premonition it's going to come and interact with me and my friend, and that it's going to be strange. And then I looked at it walking, and it acknowledged me with its eyes, and it was solid like a human being. And I mean, literally, you could touch it, and it walked. Now, the one thing about ghosts that a lot of people don't realize, and something I've experienced for a long, long time now, is that when you see a ghost, it's not always some kind of wispy thing. Sometimes it's brick solid, just like you and me. The only difference is, depending on how old it is or how long it's been dead, the eyes change. The eyes go from normal eyes to kind of blue, and then at the end they just become like these little black holes. And this guy was in the blue eye phase. So he was walking, and when ghosts walk, the only other way I can tell it's a ghost or verify it's a ghost is that their feet and the body walk at a different pace. So the feet may be walking slowly, but the whole body's moving quickly, or vice versa. So it looks disjointed. It's not super obvious all the time, but it's obvious enough. And you have to learn to look for it. And this was the first time I had really honed in on that exact thing. So this thing was walking disjointedly. It had this bluish, strange tinge to its eyes that were kind of just blank blue. And he walked up, and we were exactly halfway in the grass field. We were halfway between the end of the grass field where the shops are and where the fort was, and dead center in the middle of this grass field. And the gentleman stopped me and my friend, and he tipped his hat, and he said, "Would you like a picture with the fort?" And he had a, somewhat thick Latin accent, and my friend was Puerto Rican, and I spoke better Spanish than I do now at that point. And so I said, "Sure, not a problem. Let's do this." So my friend handed his camera over to the ghost, and the ghost took a picture. And I know this sounds unbelievable, but it's true. Um, the ghost took a picture and handed the camera back, and we said thank you. And he tipped his hat again, and he walked past us towards the fort. And I grabbed my friend's hand and I said, on the count of three, turn around and look for the man that just took our picture. 1, 2, 3. And we swung around. Nowhere to be found. There's no way a 55-year-old man in that kind of suit with those kind of shoes could run that far and just simply vanish. There's no way he could run left, right, straight, behind, or anything. And my friend's like, where is he? I said, it was a ghost. And I said, I told you that I see ghosts sometimes. And my friend literally fainted on the ground, in front of the fort, on the grass. Literally dropped to the ground, fainted. So I had to like revive him, and I laughed and laughed and laughed and enjoyed that so much because that particular person ended up being such a dick. So I thought, you know what? At the end of the race, I thought, sweet. This is, it couldn't have been better. So ghosts have also provided entertainment in my life. And in this case, a picture, which I still have. I actually still have this picture. It's somewhere in a box, but I still have it. So that's the story of that period between 9 and getting into my late 20s, early 30s. I have one more story to tell you, doing a hotel inspection at the Biltmore Hotel in Coral Gables, Florida. It's haunted. It's known to be haunted. I didn't know that. And I met a sales lady who I later became friends with, who actually later killed herself, and came to me when she killed herself, and apologized for killing herself and upsetting me. It was strange. And it was 7 years after she killed herself. It was really spooky. But we were doing a site inspection at the Biltmore, and on this one level that was supposedly the most active. And supposedly when the Biltmore is full is when the ghosts come out and play a lot, and they get really playful and mischievous. And that night, the hotel was going to be absolutely full, and most of the rooms were already full, and we were looking at a room that just hadn't had the people check in yet. And we came out of the hall, and I saw a ghost. And I pointed it out to the sales lady, my friend, and it walked right up the hall and vanished halfway up the hallway. And there was nowhere for it to run, and there was no sound of doors opening or anything else. And I had pointed to my friend, and I said, watch this person. It was a lady. It was a lady, and she looked like she was from a different time. Then we went to another floor, and we went to a room, and I told my friend, I said, when we come out of this room, we're going to see something that you're not going to believe, because I had premonition and intuition. So my friend looked at me, she's like, you're crazy. I mean, I'm having a hard time processing what happened, 2 floors down. What's going on now? I said, just wait. We walked out of the room, and this lady came, and she was dressed in this very fancy outfit with this big hat, very formal, old time. And she stopped, and she said, excuse me, could you tell me where the garden party is located today? And so my friend, she went through the paperwork, and she's like, garden party, garden party, garden party, garden party. I said, oh, don't worry. It's just down at the end of the hall. Make a right, go down 3 levels, and into the lobby, and go ahead and ask the front desk. They have the whole schedule. She's like, oh, thank you very much. And she walked past us, and she headed down towards the end of the hall, which is a long walk, because we were like right in the middle near the elevators. And then I said to my friend, watch. And she just vanished. And my friend just turned white. I mean, just all the blood drained out of her. And she said, we need to go have a cocktail right now. I know you're working and you're not supposed to do this, but we're going to go have a cocktail right now. I can't take this with you anymore. So that was about the extent of the excitement I got to see during that time frame. It was little things like that. Um, this ran a little bit more than I wanted to, but I got a lot of time frame in. So the excitement is going to start pretty soon with my next video. Uh, have a good one, and thanks for watching.